troopers do up in Caroline County between Richmond and Fredericksburg. Went to the Governor's Protective Detail for 3 different governors, and then promoted to agent. So we're general crimes in Richmond, and requested transfer to come to the Criminal Intelligence Division. So I've been there now for 15 years, so half my career has been working criminal intel as an agent, deputy director at the Virginia Fusion Center, and now special agent in charge of the division. I know you don't care, but I've gotten it out of the way, so now we're done with that. And the reason I'm up here, so in 2010, we started the Fusion Liaison Training Program. And this was an effort to give law enforcement and other public safety officers throughout the Commonwealth information, one, signs to look for criminal or terrorist activity, what to look for. Well, I can take that back. What the threats are, what to look for, what to do about it, and then how to go home at the end of the day. And that's vitally important. And for us in state police, I did not want us to have this program and come in and go to some local agency and say, hey, we're doing it this way, you need to do it this way too, because that local agency is going to say, no, we got our own way of doing that. So we really stress the training. I want to give information to these police officers. And very successful. We've got several thousand officers, both within law enforcement and other public safety agencies that have been through this. Had several people through military here in Hampton Roads go through. Very successful. But when we look at the nation, we have a population of about 350 million or so. There's about 800,000 police officers. Who's going to see stuff? It's the citizens. That 350 million, that's a lot of eyes out there looking for stuff. Knowing what's normal in their neighborhood. Knowing what's normal in their house of worship or their business. So there's always that time from the period of time from when a call goes into 911 before the police officer can actually get there. It just takes time for somebody to be able to be dispatched and respond. So one, we want to let the citizens know what the threats are, what to look for, what to do about should they encounter it, and how to go home at the end of the day. So we want to teach them that, but we also want to get that two-way flow of communication. So when you see something that is suspicious, and we're going to talk about what suspicious activity is here in just a moment. When you see something suspicious, what should you do about it? And what is it to begin with? That whole see something, say something, everybody's heard of that, right? And that's great. But what is it that you should be seeing? Do you know what it is that if you see it, what you need to say about it? So it's seeing something, recognizing that it's something that's suspicious, and being able to articulate that to be able to tell law enforcement as to what it is that you're dealing with. And that's absolutely critical. So when we look at our houses of worship, no matter what religion, no matter what denomination, the threats are out there. Okay, we know, especially within a faith family like we are, and we all come from different backgrounds, we know that there, in most religious teachings, it's a fight against good versus evil, right? So people may not like a certain religion simply because of that religion. Or there may be a history of conflict between two religions over years. And then, so we know that somebody may take a perverted view of a religion and use that thought to be able to attack another group simply because of the way somebody worships. So we need to be able to understand that there are people out there like that. We also need to understand that there are myriad amounts of threats. And then what do we need to do as a faith family to be able to protect ourselves, to be able to protect our church? And I'll use the word church a lot simply because that's just the word that I've grown up with, so please don't take offense, but I mean all houses of faith. How can we protect ourselves? And that's what we hope to go through today. So if you give me just a moment, I'll get this all going, and then we'll get started into the presentation. bearing with us. Everybody gets something to eat, right? There we go. So before we go into this, so I kind of talked about, knowing what the threats are, knowing how to recognize it. So suspicious activity reporting is what it's always been called, or SAR. Of course, down here in Hampton Road, SAR means something totally different. It usually means search and rescue, when we're looking at an issue on the water. But I've actually added this extra R in there for recognition. Again, it's being able to understand what it is that you're seeing and being able to articulate what that is. You'll see the logo here on the left, and that's for the Virginia Fusion Center. So I always like to ask this question: how many of you all have ever heard of the Virginia Fusion Center before? Well, that's not good, because this is the super secret intelligence center for the state. So word's out. So no, but what it is many people remember that phrase that was well overused after the 9/11 attacks, that as a nation, we were unable to connect the dots in the lead up to the 9/11 attacks. There's probably some truth to that as far as being able to talk about what happened, but I think the bigger thing is there was a lack of communication. You had federal agencies that wouldn't or couldn't talk to each other. Either couldn't because of the laws that were in place at the time, or wouldn't because of institutional culture. That person wears a different patch on their sleeve than me, so I'm not going to give them any information about my case. And law enforcement in general, we are kind of, close hold with our information. I may not want to tell some of my coworkers what it is I'm working for fear that information may get leaked out somehow. And once I tell somebody, it's like any secret, who knows who they're going to tell. And so I don't want to disturb any cases. And again, kind of like what I said about state police, local agencies are dealing with the things in their jurisdiction, and while the state as a whole, we're trying to look at everybody, because we don't work together every day, maybe we don't have that good camaraderie built. And so again, that's one of the things that we're trying to fix with today, and that's why I love when we have a mix of people in these classes, of both public and law enforcement, because it gives the law enforcement officers an opportunity to talk. But for you all as citizens, it gives you an opportunity to hear from us, because you don't necessarily get a chance to talk to a trooper every day unless you got the blue lights in the back window, and hopefully that hasn't happened to anybody here. And usually that's kind of normally a one-way conversation. So we want to have a two-way conversation. So that whole communications thing is how the Fusion Center came about. So in Virginia, our Fusion Center was started in 2005. It does serve as the central node of information and intelligence exchange from federal partners to state and locals, and from one state to another, and then from our local jurisdictions up to the federal government, to see how things that may happen in Virginia Beach, or in Norfolk, or in Chesapeake, do they affect the Commonwealth as a whole? Do they affect the nation as a whole? So again, the Fusion Center's been there since '05. I've happened to be there since '07. My partner here, Chip, has been around since the very beginning, I guess. Yeah. So, and he was criminal intel before we had a Fusion Center. So I'm very, very lucky to work with Chip, and he's a great partner for me. But we've got both what we do as far as information and intelligence to our public safety officials, our government officials, providing threat and risk assessments, but we also have a training and outreach component. And when we get to the end of the presentation, I'll talk about how you can become involved in what's called VFC Shield, and that is our public outreach. Totally free. We're not going to sell your email address to anybody or anything like that. And we're also not going to flood your inboxes with anything, because we all get enough emails as it is. But we'll give you an opportunity where you can get as much or as little information as you'd like. So I'll have that resource for you at the end of the presentation. Yes, sir.
I know it says open source and Fusion, so I'm poking around. Is what you're going to present available?
It is not online, however, though, I'm going to send the PDF to Bob, and then Bob can send it to all the registrants. This is also being recorded today, if I understand correctly, so I think there may be a link for that as well.
That's
So,
super, thank you.
absolutely. So, suspicious activity. I'm going to ask you a question. What is suspicious? What does the term suspicious mean to you?
Unusual.
Unusual, okay?
Out of the ordinary.
Out of the ordinary. You all go spot on. Something that's just different based on the circumstances surrounding that specific event. There are things that would happen in downtown Norfolk every day that people wouldn't bat an eye at. But if you were to do it out in Southwest Virginia, people look at you funny. I grew up in Grundy, Virginia. Anybody knows where Grundy is? That's right where Kentucky, West Virginia, and Virginia meet. We do all sorts of stuff out there, but if you were to do that here at the beach, I don't know what would happen. Okay? So they really look at you funny. So it's just different based on what's going on surrounding that. So let me ask you this question. Is that suspicious to you? Tell me why you think, for those of y'all that think it is, tell me why it is. Yes, ma'am.
We don't know what he's looking at.
Okay.
He could be looking at children, he could be looking at how people are checking things and doing stuff, so he could be doing some type of surveillance.
Absolutely. Very good point. We don't know what he's looking at. Yes, sir.
Specifically, since he's kind of trying to conceal what he's doing, I mean, it's not great, but he is not like out in the open just taking a picture.
Okay. Yep, so he's a little concealed there. You know, only has the window halfway down. Okay. Anybody else have anything?
It's just a look on his face. I mean,
Look on his face. He looks a little surly, doesn't he? Yeah. Where is it?
Why is he doing it?
Why is he doing it? Absolutely. But I think it's suspicious, really, because he's using a real camera. Nobody uses real cameras anymore. It's just your cell phone, right? But let's look at this now. Could it be raining? And that's why he didn't roll the window all the way down. Could it be that he is simply driving by a beautiful building, happened to have his camera there, wanted to take a picture of it real quick without stopping because he had to continue on down the road? And maybe he's on his way to work, because I look like that a lot in the morning when I meet.
Yeah.
So
He might be using his Zoom lens.
he might be. That's true. Might be. Is this suspicious? Can't see who it is, right? I think it's suspicious because nobody wears a fedora anymore. But yeah, what year? Yeah, 1939. This would be pretty good, right? Overcoat, got the collar pulled up. Wintertime, you might see this more as opposed to down here on the ocean front today. If you saw this on the ocean front today, that would probably be suspicious. How about that one? Is that suspicious?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I put that one in there so when I give this to state police, they get one right. So yes, that's suspicious. I'm supposed to be wearing a mask, have the guns, and give me your money. That's all suspicious. How about this one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what does that look like?
Bomb.
Looks like a bomb, right? So you got a timer here, a clock, looks like sticks of dynamite. We actually had a situation like this in the west end of Richmond a few years ago, where somebody bought something that looks just like this as a novelty alarm clock. And while that would really look cool on my desk at State Police Headquarters,
Yeah.
it did not look really cool in the back seat of a car at a Whole Foods supermarket. So after she bought this lady bought this at the yard sale, went in to go shopping. Another passerby is walking through the parking lot on her way into the store. Happens to be walking by, as she, just kind of looks in the back seat, sees this there, and she calls 911 because she sees what she thinks is a bomb. Does anybody fault her for doing that? No, absolutely not. She did exactly right. She should have. It's amazing, though, how many classes I've taught where people are afraid to call 911 or won't call because they figure maybe somebody else has already called. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to get stuck there for the next 4 hours for an investigation. Or maybe they're just kind of afraid of all the brouhaha that will result from everything coming in. So she did call, and guess what happened? We had a brouhaha. Absolutely. There were fire trucks, you know, SWAT vans, helicopters, police cars. That's actually 3 words. So I teach down in Alabama at the Center for Domestic Preparedness, and they taught me there that police is, you have to say it that way, because if you say police in Alabama, they think you're saying please. So it's police. So you learned something new today that you weren't expecting to learn. So all these police cars and everybody came out. And then, so the woman whose car this is comes out and she goes, somebody hit my car? And I go, no ma'am, but what's this on the back seat? Oh, it's an alarm clock. And the local police actually charged her. Charged her with having a hoax device, which is actually a criminal violation in state code. Now those charges were dropped because there was absolutely no intent, okay? But you know, they had to go through this motion to finish the investigation. So we can see that this might look kind of interesting on my desk at State Police Headquarters, but it is rather suspicious when you look at the backseat of a car. None of this, we can make excuses for all these, for good and bad. So let me ask you this question. Chris here, does he look suspicious to you?
He looks like a handicapped kid.
Who, do what?
He looks like a handicapped kid, so you don't know what he's gonna do.
Okay, fair enough. What else do we see? Shirt's not tucked in. That's probably the norm nowadays, right? Okay. Oversized, absolutely.
Out of the waist, too, a little bit.
How about his expression?
That's what I'm talking about.
He looks a little uptight, doesn't he? I've got 2 teenage daughters. They look like that all the time. All the time. They're just that dour looks on their faces. Goodness gracious, it's not that bad. So let's take a look at Chris here.
Pants are gonna fall off of him now.
Yes, but he doesn't think they have one of those mean old ARs though, so you know, right?
So it's okay then,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
There you go. He doesn't, yeah,
That's
assault
an
rifle.
AR.
So, Say Havens International is who put this video together. This is talking about the benefits of having school uniforms. Okay, so if everybody's dressed the same, shirts tucked in, that kind of thing, then you would be less likely to be able to have this. So we were able to make excuses for Chris there. You know, kids wear baggy shirts, you know, kind of slouching, dour expression. We see that with kids all the time, but he had all that on him. Now, granted, if he tried to walk, yeah, his pants would have fallen down. With the shotgun down the leg of his pants, he'd been walking like this, I guess, because he couldn't have bent his knee, right? That's the whole thing, though. We can make excuses for those first 4 pictures. We can see this. There's things that we can make excuses for why we're seeing what we're seeing, and then we can see things that end up being bad when we didn't expect them to. That's what suspicious is. Okay, we've got to do that inquiry. We've got to see the totality of what's going on. So the 3 behaviors we're going to talk about today are suspicious, criminal, and life-threatening. So suspicious doesn't mean anything bad's going to happen. There may be a perfectly fine explanation as to why we're seeing what we're seeing. Criminal, issues while seemingly minor, it's law enforcement can take some action on very quickly, and we can deal with it. And then life-threatening requires immediate response by all. And then we'll get into that here just a little bit too. So let's talk about suspicious. Not dressed in the custom of your location. All right, so now we've got a faith family here. Most of us are representing different houses of worship. How do people come in dressed to services at your church? And again, I'm just using that as a generic term. Do we dress up?
Casual, kind of semi-formal sometimes.
Casual, okay. So if somebody were to come in with shorts to worship on Sunday morning, would that be that big of a deal? If I'd done that when I was a kid, my grandmother would have beat the daylights out of me, right? So, yeah, I mean, it was tie, it was your finest Sunday clothes, you know, you may have heard that term. Nowadays, not so much, right? Now, come as you are. We want you to hear the message. Don't care how you look. How about if somebody came in wearing a tuxedo? It'd be a little bit strange, unless he's getting married, right? Could be that's the only clean suit the person had. Could be that's the only thing that they had because it was given to them, that they wanted to look nice to come to service, but that's all they had. Okay. Not familiar with the layout of the area. So when you have service, most people think, all right, we're gonna be in the sanctuary and everybody's in there, but then you get somebody whom you don't know and is walking around the educational wing of the building. And somebody goes up and talks to them and say, well, what are you looking to do? Well, I'm here for church service. Well, there's nobody down here. They're all up there in the big room where everybody is. But it could be that they're just lost and they came in a door that happened to be unlocked, which we'll kind of talk about that here too. Not familiar with basic religious procedures. So I was raised in the Baptist church, and my wife was raised in the Catholic church. I know how the ceremony normally goes. After we tithe, we sing doxology, and we go into the next phase of the worship service. My wife, when I go to church with her family, I don't know when I'm supposed to stand up, kneel, sing in Latin, which I can't. All this stuff, and that's a learning thing for me. Doesn't mean I was intended of doing any harm. It's probably I should go to church with her family more. It could be somebody who is kind of standoffish there in the sanctuary. Maybe they had lost their faith and they're trying to get it back, and they're trying to come back, and they just don't know the normal rhythm. So again, that doesn't mean anything bad. Obvious nervousness. Okay, so I was a pretty good kid. I went to high school. I've lived all over the state. My dad's from Suffolk. My mom's from Grundy. So I've got Route 460 covered in Virginia, the western part to the eastern part of the state. So my dad was my principal from 8th grade through graduation. So we went to high school up in Clark County near Winchester, and I would ride to school with him every day. So my senior year, I'd already been accepted to college, doing pretty good, playing baseball, drum major of the band, decent kid, good grades. Up there, the things to do on the weekends, because this is like before cable, we'd have parties, right? Up there, it's orchard parties. You go out and park in the orchards. I'm not going to go into detail as to what occurred in these orchard parties, because I don't know what the statute of limitations is, because I think there were a lot of minors involved, but I know stuff was going on. It wasn't me, though, that I'll say in this group. Okay. So I'd get home, Dad would ask me, hey, what'd you do? Hung out with my buddy Doug, we went riding around. Okay, so Monday morning, going to school. Well, Clark County is the second smallest county in the state behind Arlington. And it's a very rural county. There's one high school, one middle, one elementary school, and that's it. So by about 9:30, the high school principal knows everything that happened to every kid throughout the weekend. So then the ride home on Monday afternoon, he'd wait till we were about halfway there. So I think, all right, nothing's going on. He'd look at me and he'd say, Austin, tell me again what you did. So I hung out with Doug. And he started asking me more probing questions. Okay, where'd you go? What'd you do? Who were you with? Well, I was nervous as we're riding back home in my dad's '76 Beetle, and I'm opening the glove box. I'm reading the owner's manual, okay, because I don't want to have any contact with him. I don't want to look at him, okay? I'm certainly not going to make eye contact with him because he's going to see what I'm doing, right? Everybody has heard that phrase, the eyes are the windows to the soul. It is really hard to look at somebody and lie to them. In law enforcement, we have to go to classes to be able to learn how to do that. I can't do that. I still can't do that. I blush as soon as I say anything that's halfway untrue. And my wife always says every time I've lied, not that I've lied that much, but when she catches me in something, it's more of a joke, I start to hiccup, which I truly did. And she just gives me a hard time about that. Tunnel vision. We see bad guys not wanting to look at police officers. If I'm walking down the city street in uniform and I see somebody coming at me and they're doing everything but look at me, That could be something up there. Clothing not matching the weather, we kind of hit that earlier. Hands hidden from view, okay? And you see this in police shows all the time, right? You always hear the police officers telling somebody when they go up and talk to them, let me see your hands, let me see your hands, right? Because you have no idea when somebody's got their hand in their pocket if they're bringing out a gun or a cell phone. You don't know, and it's that quick. And they make guns now that look like an iPhone. Shoots as either 1 round or as many as 4 rounds. And it looks like this, like kind of like in an OtterBox case, the heavier plastic cases, the little handle folds down, and you've actually got an operational firearm. So that whole thing of patting somebody down, as we do as law enforcement officers, to look to see if they have a weapon, just because you find a cell phone doesn't necessarily, a cell phone is not always a cell phone. Hands hidden from view. Adjusting clothing at the waist. Now I have to do that because I'm old and I'm fat, okay? And so I have to do this all the time. But we saw with Chris Dorn, right? He had all that stuff around his belt. That's going to pull his pants down. Okay, that's weight. When we're in uniform, you may have heard the term a duty belt. We actually have our trousers belt, and then we have the gun belt, and actually we have little belt keepers that clip the things in there, so it all stays together. Otherwise, it slides down your hips. Unless you got big hips like me. And then carrying packages or backpacks, of course, we see that all the time anymore. However, I've got my bag here. However, if I were to leave this here and walk away, could be just because I don't have Alzheimer's. I have some timers. Could be just because I have some timers and I forgot it, or it could be something that I left here. Again, suspicious. Doesn't mean anything bad's going to happen. Could be indicative of something. Criminal. All right, now we're getting a little bit more serious now. So breaking into cars. All right. What do we leave in our cars when we go to worship? How many of y'all take your cell phones into church with you? You do? I'm afraid to. You know why? Because you've been in like a real quiet room and you forgot to turn your ringer off, right? And then all of a sudden the thing starts ringing. I'm always afraid that's going to be me. It's going to be during the sermon. The pastor's going to forget where he was. He'll start all over, and we'll never get home that afternoon. And I don't want to be the guy that caused all that. What else do we leave out there? We leave purses, firearms, we all sorts of stuff out there. Breaking into cars happens. It happens at church because everybody's inside. Nobody's looking out in the parking lot, because once everybody's in, is anybody even looking out there? Trespassing on property. A suburban area like this, I don't see as much of an issue. I think the bigger issues for these are an urban area or a very, very rural area. An urban area where you have a lot of foot traffic and somebody comes onto the property and maybe they're checking doors to see if they can get in or not. Or a very rural area where maybe nobody goes down that road for hours at a time. But this could be, trespassing is criminal, but it could be indicative that they're trying to get in to steal something. Intoxicated in public, that's usually a pretty bad thing, but police can get involved. Public urination, don't do that, but that's something that police can get involved with. Using illicit drugs, of course, is an issue. This one, though, lots of people say, really? Reckless driving in a parking lot? Why is that something that we need to worry about? Well, one, we want to take care of kids. We teach our kids all the time, right? Look left and right before you cross the street and go over. And you can go out here on Wichita or out here on Virginia Beach Boulevard, and how do people drive? Crazy. Absolutely. We see that all the time. So we know that our adversaries, terrorist groups, have advocated in trainings to their people, you don't have to hijack aircraft. In fact, when we look at the two big radical terror groups of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, or Islamic State, Al-Qaeda is very much into a large, big show of force, hence hijacking of 4 aircraft. ISIS looks at it a different way. They're looking at much smaller scale attacks, that death by 1,000 cuts. So I don't need to go out and hijack an airplane. I just need to get a pickup truck and maybe run through a crowd Friday night high school football game. Or we've seen this in the United States when we look at the west side of Manhattan, and where somebody rented a Home Depot pickup truck in Jersey, came over, ran over a bunch of people. We've seen it at Ohio State University, where somebody came onto the Commons and rode over a bunch of people and then came out with a machete as part of their attack. We see this kind of a lot. So if we know our adversaries are telling their people they can do this, how do we know that that's not what is actually going on? It's not just some kid driving like a fool. We don't know. But these are all things, the sooner you involve with law enforcement, the sooner we can deal with that. That's our job. Let us come out there. It doesn't necessarily mean that, somebody's going to get arrested. It may be a warning. A lot of houses of worship don't want to get police involved because they don't feel that that is the charitable thing to do. Because they don't want to cause problems for this person. They don't want to get them in trouble. But I will say this, and having been in law enforcement for going on 29 years, there are times that law enforcement involvement is what has saved people from going further down a very bad path. So the one time, it's only happened once in my career, that I got as close as I could be to having pulled the trigger and shooting somebody. There was no more slack in that trigger. It was ready to go, and when he finally gave up, and he ended up going to prison for 5 years for that and the boatload of crack cocaine and marijuana in the car. But I have since heard that when he came out, he's gotten married, he's a dad, job, member of his church back in Carolina. That he didn't want to hurt me that day. He fallen in with the wrong crowd as a teenager, young adult. I just happened to be the thing that was going to send him to prison just for the drugs, and all he was trying to do was get away. He didn't necessarily want to hurt me. But that's what saved him. At least that's the way I view it. It makes me feel better about it. But I do think that made a difference in his life. So again, a lot of houses of worship don't want to involve police, but there are times where that should be the course of action. And then life-threatening, okay? When we think of life-threatening and we think of an active threat event in a house of worship or any location, we think of a gun. It's not always a gun. Can you kill somebody with a knife? Absolutely. A machete? Yes. A vehicle? Absolutely. It could be a device. Now this is a government class, so I have to have an acronym. So here's my one acronym: CBRNE. Chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive. So chemical, okay? How many of y'all have the makings for a chemical weapon in your home right now? Everybody should, right? Go into your kitchen sink, right? Take out a bottle of cleaner and it says, do not mix with, and what do? Mix it with that. Chemical device right there, all right? Biologic, so things like anthrax, right? Or ricin. Okay, both of these are poisonous materials that have been used in the past for assassinations or other attacks. How about salmonella? What is salmonella? Foodborne organism, causes a lot of stomach issues, whatnot. It can kill you too. We actually had a situation out in the Pacific Northwest where a religious sect had moved into this community, and they had plans of building a commune within this jurisdiction. And it was coming up for a voter referendum as to whether this would pass or not. And it was not looking good. So they made salmonella. They got rotten chicken, bad potato salad, all that kind of stuff, mixed up solution, put it in spray bottles, went to all the salad bars in the restaurants in town, sprayed the salad bars with salmonella in an attempt to get people sick so they couldn't come out and vote and the referendum would pass. Now, first of all, who thinks of that kind of stuff? All right, that sounds like some Tom Clancy novel or something. I don't know. But so we got a biologic, and here's an issue where the church were the bad guys. And that's something what we don't normally think about. Because was a religious sect that was doing this. Radiological, how many of y'all have a radiological device in your house? Only 2 people raised their hands because y'all are scared now, right? Because I'm going to call you in because I'm already checking. You got chemical weapons, you got radiological. Everybody should have one. Microwave. Smoke detectors. You got a americesium, which is a very minute amount of it. It's a radioactive material, and that's what it changes the rate of how it decays or whatever it detects the smoke. Now, I remember when my grandparents got that same grandmother that beat me when I didn't trust nice to church, got their first smoke detectors, like early 70s. I remember this. And you'd open the thing up, and there was a little metal box in there. It had the radiological pinwheel thing on there. And I just used to think that was neat. Of course, my hair used to be black. It's orange now. A lot of other issues. But yeah, so what would it be suspicious if somebody went to Walmart and bought every single smoke detector that they had? Okay. Are there any valid reasons for somebody doing that? Okay. They could be building contractors. Maybe they'd be buying wholesale as opposed to retail, possibly. Could be a church. Could be a church trying to give it to people that didn't have smoke detectors. Okay? So there are plenty of reasons as to why that may happen. Is it suspicious? Yeah, I'd say it could be. Nuclear, we all understand the threat of nuclear stuff, and explosive, how to make a bomb. Okay? So everybody remembers the Boston City Marathon bombing? What kind of device was that? Does anybody remember? It was a pressure cooker, right? What was the explosive material?
Nails.
Well, they had nails in their shrapnel, absolutely. The explosive material was actually black powder hollowed out from fireworks. They'd gotten a bunch of fireworks, took the black powder out. You know, in Virginia, we can't have big fireworks. Everybody understands those laws, right? Though my neighbor is a Henrico County paramedic firefighter. He loves fireworks. I'm not kidding on this. They make pilgrimages to south of the border, down 95. And so he'll come back, and we have all sorts of really phenomenal fireworks shows there in the neighborhood. You know, New Year's Eve, July 4th, the random Tuesday. I mean, it happens. And as a trooper, I can do 3 things. I can warn, summons, or arrest. So when I'm sitting on my front porch looking across the street at his house, I'm sitting there drinking my iced tea with the kids there, and we're watching these things go up, I say, girl, you probably shouldn't do that. So I figure, yeah, I can go to bed guilt-free because I warned him by doing that. So explosives. The 2 individuals who made that bomb got the directions online from Inspire magazine. The article was entitled, How to Make a Bomb in the Kitchen of Your Mom. Step-by-step instructions on how to make these devices. And back down in Alabama where I teach, we have a group of bomb techs there. They follow the directions. Yep, those directions are absolutely right. And every time you follow those directions, you can absolutely make the device. And if you remember, they actually had these pressure cookers inside backpacks. And what they did is they set the backpack down by a lamppost or a newspaper box and walked away. And when you look at the injuries that occurred, that's why there were so many amputations, because you have the nails in there, and it caused such severe injuries to lower extremities. Had they set it up like here, you would have had fatalities. So that's just one of those things, you know, make it the best of a bad situation, I guess, that we didn't have more fatalities that day. What happens, though, is an active threat, any of this, active threat, imminent physical harm, what are you going to do? Now, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not. There may be things that you feel you should do. There may be things that you feel you shouldn't do. But the whole point of this class is to get your mind working and playing those what-if games. What would you do right now? What would you do right now if somebody came in that door with a gun and was shooting? How would you handle the situation? Now, granted, Bob would push me out that way and use me as a shield, I guess, right? Appreciate you, brother. So, you know, what would you do? And you've got to think about that. What would you do if you're at the supermarket this evening on your way home and something were to happen, which we've seen that recently in Buffalo, New York? How would you handle it? And it's getting your mind thinking about this now puts you in a better position to be able to deal with it. Should, heaven forbid, that ever occur to you. So what are we going to do about this? We're going to utilize the OODA loop when we look at these different behaviors. And the OODA loop is observe, orient, decide, and act. Observe, orient, decide, and act. This is the process that we utilize for so many things. But specifically in a high-stress situation when we're looking at suspicious, criminal, or life-threatening activity that we need to do. So observe, situational awareness. One of the few things I really want you to take away from this today is being situationally aware, knowing what's going on around you. Knowing what's going on around you. Whether it's somebody driving like a fool on Virginia Beach Boulevard, whether it's somebody who is stealing something at the Walmart, and they don't want to get caught, but you don't want to be around when that's occurring, or anything. Being situationally aware, understanding the changes that are happening around us. You then have to orient on what's going on, what should be happening, and what's actually happening, and being able to formulate that and being able to articulate it as to what you're seeing. You decide, make a determination as to what you should do, and then you should act upon this. So, I ask this question. For how many husbands are in here? Okay. Gentlemen, does your wife have to say anything to you for you to know that she's mad at you? We know. Now, I may have let the secret out, okay? We actually do pay attention sometimes, maybe, okay? I can tell. So I observe, so I'll come home. If she's mad at me, the usually thing that I'm observing is the frying pan flying down the hallway at me. So I have to orient, all right? What did I do? Because it's my fault. Trash out, toilet seat up, birthday, anniversary, I don't know that one. And you just go down through that list. So I'm orienting, I'm deciding what I should do. I should probably just go back to the office. And then I get in the car and go. Okay? That's the OODA loop. We do this every day though, and we don't even think about this. Think about when you go grocery shopping or you go into the mall and you're finding your parking space and you get to the spot that you want to park in and there's old beat up piece of junk car halfway into the space, or at least on the white line. And if you pull in there, they're going to ding the heck out of your door when they get back to their car, because if they don't care about theirs, they sure don't care about yours. What do? You find another spot. That's all this is. That's all the OODA loop is. We do it every day and we never think about it. We never think about what the process is or know what the terms were when we're looking at this. How you process that OODA loop is absolutely critical. Because while you're trying to observe, orient, decide, and act, the bad guy is already doing that. They've already got a plan in place as to what they want to do. So for traffic stops, for us, for police officers, no matter what agency you're with, there's certain things that we do, okay? There's a thing called a security touch. I'm gonna leave a fingerprint on the car in case I end up getting killed there. At least they know I was at that car. I'm walking up, I'm looking into the back seat. It's also to see if there's anybody in the trunk, though. I don't think anybody ever hid in a trunk, but that's what they told us in the academy. So I'm making sure the trunk's closed. I'm looking in the back seat, and I'm coming up to that B post, right? B post is where the front door and the back door meet, and I'm kind of poking my head around because I want to make a small enough target as I can, as smallest target as I can. If I were to come up here and look at him right in the window and walk up there, if that individual had wanted to shoot me, all I had to do is sit right here with a weapon right up here next to his chest, and as soon as I pop around, he pops around. So if they're wanting to do that, they've already got their plan in place. They're looking to see where I'm weak. There've only been 2 times that I've really ever been scared as a police officer. Both were traffic stops. Car came through radar. So midnight shift in Caroline County back in the mid-90s, you could actually go several minutes without seeing a car. 95 now, There's cars all the time. I had a car come through, high rate of speed. And I tell this class when I'm with a faith-based community, because I think it's important. I think you'll understand where I'm coming from with this. As it goes past, and I'm turning on the blue lights, pulling out the crossover to go pull this car over, there's a voice in my head that says, "Don't stop that car." That's a quote. Don't stop that car. And as I continue out, I hear it again. Don't stop that car. And by the time I stop the car, because I'm doing my thing, it is screaming at me in my head, "Don't stop the car." So I get out, I go up, and because I've already stopped it, I'm kind of committed at this point. I go up, tell the individual, I checked your speed through radar. At this rate of speed, I'm giving you a verbal warning for reckless driving by speed. You need to slow down and get on down the road. It happened, same crossover, about 6 months later. That car, I listened to the voice. I look at it a certain way. I feel that I was being guided. I do. This is a faith-based community. I think many of you may understand what I'm saying with this. But for a secular community, it could be Deter. Maybe I saw something as that car went by. Maybe I saw a weapon out or something in that car that I was able, because back in the day, before these eyes got old, I could see an inspection sticker when it expired, from like 300 yards away. I was pretty good at that. Not anymore. That's why I work in an office now. Maybe I saw something. Maybe he made some sort of movement. Maybe through my knowledge, skills, and abilities of being a road trooper for so many years, I picked up on something. That's the OODA loop. I will say this, though, is sometimes, and again, this is my personal opinion, sometimes things are put upon us. Don't deny that noise. That second time, I knew it. It's only happened twice in 29 years. So that's truly how I feel. Don't deny it. When something like that, your body is telling you, your soul is telling you whatever, make sure you listen, because something's going on, you just haven't been able to articulate what it is. So what can we do? Well, these are some different response options. Well, first of all, we can observe the behavior further. Okay? Is there a reason for what we saw? And now that I put it in context, it makes more sense. Possibly. We can engage them in conversation, right? The whole point of this today is we do not want to exclude people from coming into our houses of worship. We want to grow our church families. That's the point. That's why we have open doors to bring people in, spread the message. That's good stuff. We're going to go up and talk to them, right? You get somebody new who's coming to your church. Are you going to go up and say hi? We hope so, right? We want to invite them in. So you go up and say, "How you doing? I'm Austin. What's your name?" And he's not looking at you. "Jim." "Well, Jim, it's great to have you here. What brings you here today?" "Well, I thought about, I don't know, just want to join church." "Okay, well, that's great, Jim. I'm so glad that you came to our church. Why did you come to our church? What brought you here? Was it our advertisement? Was it the beautiful building? Did you have a friend?" All that. And you're trying to get them to give you information, right? You're engaging them in conversations. If their story doesn't line up, okay, then maybe there's something more there to it. But we want to bring them in, and maybe it's somebody who's socially awkward. Maybe they have a speech impediment. Maybe they're just scared because of what's been laid upon them. We want to engage them. So maybe I'm going to have one of my greeters and ushers be their buddy for that day, right? Have somebody who stays close on, because there's something there that is giving our safety team some concern, our greeters and ushers some concern. Maybe I'm going to give them a buddy for the day. One, to help them if they want to be a part of the church family. Let's build them up. Let's bring them in. Or if they have ill intent or something's not quite right, we can deal with it in a more rapid fashion. Video and audio recording. People's behaviors change if there's a camera about. So, of course, TKR was in here earlier. If they had come in here while everybody was in here in the room, everybody's behavior would have changed. Some of you would die to be on camera. It would be so cool, right? me, I was on television. Some people like me got stuck out there. It's just one of those things. And then other people will do everything they can not to be on camera for one reason or another. But it does change behavior. So if you know a place is recording, it makes a difference in how you behave. Anytime you go into Walmart, what do you see as soon as you walk in? There's a big monitor there, right, of you walking in. That's to let people know, hey, we got cameras here. Don't be stealing our stuff. That's to remind people. So video and audio recording does make a difference. It's also very good for the investigation part after an event where it actually happened. Notify site authorities, the managers, or the ushers, our greeters, okay? Our greeters and ushers are our first line of defense. They are our first line of defense for any bad things happening in our house of worship. Do I want to go and talk to the pastor? No. He or she is doing pastoring stuff, all right? Let them handle that. Our greeters and ushers. Now, where do you have your greeters and ushers? Do you have them on the outside of the building, or is it as soon as you come into the vestibule? Maybe I want to engage somebody out in the parking lot. In the crime prevention world, we call this concentric rings of protection. So if I've got a bad actor who's wanting to do harm, maybe they want to steal this computer, I'd much rather deal with them out there in the parking lot before they get to right here where they can pick the thing up. If I have an active shooter situation, let me deal with the person outside before they get into a confined space with a bunch of people where there's more targets. Our greeters and ushers are absolutely critical. I talked about the parking lot and stealing from cars. Does everybody come into your house of worship during service? Should we leave one greeter or usher outside? One, to see if anybody's late. Two, to make sure somebody's not coming in one of the doors that they shouldn't on the educational wing of the building. And three, to be that set of eyes out there. Now, does that person then miss out on the service that day? You could look at it that way. Or could it be that's the service they are providing that day? So we think about, we need to think about those greeters and ushers and really key them in. And we'll talk about safety teams here in just a few minutes too. You can confront the individual, though I will say that if you confront them, they may confront you back. But that is an option. The sooner you call us, the sooner you get law enforcement en route, the better. Now, Virginia Beach, response times I'm sure are great. Virginia Beach PD can be here pretty quickly. Rural jurisdiction, it's going to take a while for the sheriff's deputies or state police to get there. So the sooner you get us on the road, the better off we all are. You can evacuate the area. And then this one is a difficult one to talk about. You can fight back. Again, I'm not here to tell you what you should do. There are people that won't fight. So I gave an active shooter class to Eastern Mennonite University up in Harrisonburg. Mennonite religion, pacifist religion. When I got to, in the active shooter part about run, hide, fight, I had people, I'm used to people falling asleep in my class, so we're okay. But I've never had people walk out in anger. And I had people walk out because of what I was saying. And I'd done my research. I mean, I understand, to a limited amount about their religious views. And I wasn't telling them you need to fight back. I'm saying this is something you need to consider. And I was given 2 presentations back to back, and during the intermission, one of the vice presidents of the college came down and started berating the security director who brought me in. And I said, please don't yell at him, yell at me. I'm the one who said this. He says, I can't fight back. For him, God told him he can't fight back. I said, goodness gracious, Austin White didn't tell you anything that your God's not telling you. Dude, goodness, it's not my place. He says, but yeah, you did. You told me to run, hide, fight. You told me to avoid, deny, defend. I said, no, these are options. Not my place to say anything. There are some people that are not spiritually capable of doing that. That's fine. There are some people that are physically not capable of doing that, and that's fine. My grandmother was in World War II. She was an Army WAC. She was assigned up here at Fort Eustis when it was Fort Patrick Henry at the time in World War II. And she's a tough old lady. Think the world of her. She would have beat the daylights of anybody that came into her church if she could have gotten out of her wheelchair. Okay? She had the gumption, didn't have the physical capability. You've got to make that decision. You know that there are people in your congregations that can't or won't do that. Again, there are some, and you've got people that will. You as a church family need to make that decision as to how you're going to handle it. You need to work together as a group. But each of you individually need to understand how you would handle it. Maybe I'm just going to get out of there as quick as I can. That's great. What if you can't? How would you handle it? Think about those things. Play those what-if games. We do that with new police officers all the time during their training period. What would you do if this happened? And I get them to give me an answer so they can start thinking about it. So we need to think about it. We're going to establish a plan. We're going to shorten our OODA loop. Suspicious behaviors. If a person demonstrates 3 or more behaviors, we're going to notify our team members, keep an eye on them, see what's going on. May simply just be, guys, just person is a little bit different. If we have criminal behaviors, we're going to make sure our staff knows. We're going to get law enforcement involved, get them there as quickly as possible. And if life-threatening, what is our plan for our congregation as to how we're going to handle it? Let's establish our plan. So, how many of y'all have safety and security? How many of y'all have security teams at your churches? Do you call it a security team? Do you?
I'm one of the leads of it, so yes.
Okay.
I'm on our security team. We have stations throughout the church.
Okay.
Road personnel, all on radio comms and.
That's phenomenal. Absolutely. I will say this. Be conscious of using the word security as far as your team.
We say safety.
Good. And that's where that's my point. A lot of church insurance companies will increase your rates if you have a security team. Because when they think security, that they think a bunch of guys walking around with guns. And the chance of something happening inadvertently is much more likely. Because, we're thinking security, lots of times people will think of the yellow t-shirt with security across it. Don't want that. Safety. I strongly urge you to use the word safety. One, it's a softer word. Because there are people in your congregations that would not necessarily like that word security. Security can definitely be part of safety, but let's look at what the actual threats are out there. Which is more likely, an active shooter event during a worship service or somebody having a heart attack? Heart attack. Absolutely. So, are your safety teams, is everybody trained in CPR and first aid? Do you have an AED in your church? Do you have fire extinguishers? When were they last checked? Do your people know how to use a fire extinguisher? Do they know where they are at? Fire drills. Have you ever had a fire drill or some sort of fire safety exercise in your house of worship? Has anybody had that here? Have anybody done that? Okay?
We've been on hurricane drills.
That's awesome. Did you do it during service?
No, we don't do it during service.
Okay.
We have role players.
So here's something to think about as to why I bring this up. Most places have. I know of all the presentations I've done around the state, there's one church up in McLean that has done this. It's McLean Bible Church. Huge mega church, multiple campuses. Their team is very proactive. So they actually did it during service once. Now I would say don't make it a surprise. Okay, tell everybody, hey, this Sunday you can even dress down that day if you want to. But we're going to do this because when we think about it, most congregations, and again, in the churches I was raised in, rural areas of the state, the doors are in the back of the sanctuary. Everybody comes in the back door. Maybe some people came from the educational wing through one of the doors up by the pulpit, but most of us are coming in the back. So when we think of a fire, well, there's a door right there. I'm going out the door, right? Well, what if that's where the fire is? Could be. What if that's where the active threat is? Could be. Some of these rural churches I've been in, those little doors up there by the front are only about yay wide. Are you going to be able to get all those people through that? And how about Mrs. Smith, who's in a wheelchair? How's she going to get through that door? So my safety teams need to take the responsibility. All right, who's got Ms. Smith today? If something happens, who's picking her up and carrying her out? So we have to think about those things. Because if everybody will just go out the back, because that's just the normal thing that we think about, well, we can't do that. That's shortening that OODA loop. How are we going to take care of Ms. Smith or Mr. Jones or whomever? We we need to make sure that we make that determination on ourselves as to what we're going to do in an active threat situation. I think you can probably figure this one out. Person A, he's alert, knows the plan, or sees something, knows the plan, executes the plan. Or me, I'm not really distracted. I'm sitting there playing Angry Birds on my phone. Yeah, something's not right over there. I don't know. Somebody will call it in, right? This is a target. This is somebody who's going to do something about it. Be that guy. Okay. Be able to recognize what you're seeing, know what your plan is, and execute that plan. We want you to be vigilant. Now, this is a very hard slide to see here, but basically we're looking at the description of the individual. Okay. If you tell me, I come upon a scene, say it's over here in town center, and somebody says, hey, there's a guy running down the street with a gun. Well, that's great, but if there's somebody running down the street with a gun, there's probably going to be a lot of people running down the street as well, away from the guy with the gun. Tell me what that individual looks like. How are they dressed? Color of their skin? What type of hair do they have? Did they run funny? Did they have a strange gait? Something like that. More information, the better. This right here, the type of weapon is critical too. A man running down the street with a gun, well, is it a pistol or is it an AR? That makes a difference because it makes a difference in our tactics and techniques and the equipment that we bring to deal with that specific threat. Yes, sir.
Just something about learning from 15 years of street experience enforcement. When you're dealing with people who don't know guns, ask them if it would look like a cop gun, cowboy gun. A lot of people, if you say pistol, they're not going to know semi-automatic versus automatic. But if you say, does it look like a police gun, they're going to be thinking Glock or Beretta, stuff like that. Just things to think about that I've learned because, we're taught in the academy, like you guys are, semi-automatic pistol,
Right.
But those aren't normal terms that most people would think about. So it's just something that I learned.
That's absolutely valid. And I make a joke here usually about I don't care what caliber it is. Just don't, and that's a perfect way to describe it. I like that very much. I'm probably going to steal that, so I'll put you a footnote in there and give you credit for it. But yeah, it does make a difference because it makes a difference. One, our tactics and techniques, because a hunting rifle can reach a whole lot further than a cowboy gun can. And it makes a difference in the type of equipment I need to wear, what I pull out of my trunk as far as my equipment that I'll use to deal with that threat. This is just a tease, because that looks like a closing slide, but it's not a closing slide. Right? These are some things I do want you to take away from here as well. I talked about situational awareness. This right here. Don't ever think that can't happen here. Please don't. There are so many churches that have thought that, and they end up having an active shooter situation. I mentioned I'm from Grundy. Grundy is about as big as this building. It's not much bigger, maybe a little bit bigger. We've had active shooter situation in Grundy. We're at the Appalachian School of Law. If we've had an active shooter situation in my little corner of the world, it can absolutely happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be a big city. It doesn't have to be a tiny little town. It could be anywhere. It's just a matter of where and when evil shows up. And that's what it is. It's evil. If somebody's wanting to hurt somebody else for whatever reason, it could happen absolutely anywhere. And I don't want you to leave here today scared to death, that there's a terrorist or a shooter behind every tree. No, don't do that. It's not a way to live, right? But recognize the fact, hey, this kind of stuff happens. Hopefully it doesn't today, but if it did, how would I handle it? Be an exceptional observer. Try and get as much information, the descriptions of the weapon, how they're dressed, all that to be able to report to law enforcement. Have a plan, be able to shorten that OODA loop up. Have other witnesses, work as a team. That's absolutely critical. When notifying law enforcement, give us as much information as possible. So, I talked about suspicious activity reporting. And these used to be called the 7 signs of terrorism. 7 signs of terrorism. I've actually taken the terrorism part out and just calling it the 7 signs. Because when you look at these types of activities, you see these before a terrorist event or a criminal event. So surveillance. Okay, surveillance is looking to see what's going on. How many of you ever heard of the phrase casing a bank? Right? They're going to look to case the bank before they rob it. Well, that's surveillance. They're looking to see, do they have security officers there? Are there open doors? When does the money come and go? Elicitation, trying to get information about a facility or getting information from an individual. Tests of security, seeing if doors are open, if alarms work. Acquiring supplies, suspicious people, trial and dry runs, and then deploying the assets. I'm going to show you a case study of this here in just a moment about how all that worked in a specific terror event. But everybody's heard of this, right? See something, say something. And so what I've tried to teach you today, or try to key you in on, is the fact that you need to be able to know what to say. We actually have a phone app now called See Something, Send Something. I'm going to show you a quick video on to describe it.
Share these with your friends. Send these to us. See something suspicious? Then snap it and send it using Virginia's See Something, Send Something app. Be alert, be informed, know the signs. If you see it, send it. Download the app today and protect your family, protect your community, protect Virginia.
So we've got a mom with her kids there. For those of y'all that are parents, I'm telling you, take as many pictures with the kids when they're little and nice like that as much as you can. Because when they become teenagers, no, it doesn't work. My oldest daughter, she's 20 now. She'll throw gang signs just to tick me off when I'm trying to take her picture. She'll make the goofiest face. Nope. And heaven forbid, dad wants a picture with his daughters. No, that doesn't happen at all. So I miss those days. Anyway, take pictures of them when they're nice. So we have a mom there, and she's seeing something that looks kind of unusual. Now, granted, it's a chilly day. It's a fall day. You got a guy with a jacket on, hat, and sunglasses. So sunglasses on a cloudy day? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And he goes and he starts taking pictures of a security camera. In Virginia, is that legal or illegal to do?
Legal.
It is legal. Do that as much as you want. Is it suspicious? Could be, right? The nice brick building or this nice brick wall with the leaves up there, yeah, it's kind of picturesque. Security camera, not so much. Could there be valid reasons? Absolutely. Could be the guy from the alarm company. It could be the owner of that building. It could be some kid doing a college project on urban studies, okay? But then he goes and takes a backpack, sets it down, and walks away. That right there is what we in law enforcement call a bomb, okay? It's a bomb. Until we determine otherwise, that is a bomb. I'm not going to get on my little phone app. I'm going to get the heck away, and I'm going to call 911, all right? I'm not sitting around to take pictures of this guy leaving a backpack. Until I know what that is a bomb, I'm getting away from it. Please, that's another thing to take away from today. All right? They set something down like that and walk away. That's more than just suspicious. So, see something, send something. So, we have this capability. There are about 14 different fusion centers around the country that have it. It's free through Google Play or the App Store. I think the logos were up there a minute ago. Totally free. When you go ahead and you install that, it allows you to put your name and telephone number and address in there as you install it. I can understand why you don't want the State Intelligence Center to have that information, but don't worry, we got it already. It's fine. I'm kidding. We don't do that kind of stuff. Okay? That's DHS that does that. So, yeah, and they don't do it either. All that does is it allows the investigator to reach back out to you to be able to further that investigation. Okay? If you don't want to put your information in there, you don't have to. It's fine. It just makes it more difficult.
If you see someone leaving a backpack like that, and,
Yes.
and you were to call 911 or call the police department, and it comes in and it turns out that it's the guy's gym shorts or something like that, there's no bomb or anything, are you then liable for like false reporting an incident? Or is that-
No, if you're making a report in a good faith effort, that's fine.
Okay,
It's
so
not a
there's
problem.
no worries
Now, if you
there.
start calling in one like every other day, they're going to look at you funny. Okay. And then, yeah, could it get to that point? Yeah. If somebody is making false calls, they can't be charged with that. Something like this, though, no. Good faith effort. I went through a training class. That orange-headed guy, told me, if somebody leaves a backpack and walks away, that's a suspicious device, and I'm supposed to call you. Good, absolutely good. If you have your GPS on your phone, it'll route it to the closest fusion center that has this capability. So we're the only ones in the Southeast. So say you're in Florida on vacation. You see something that you don't feel really rates a 911 call, but you want to tell somebody about it, and you don't know the non-emergency number wherever you are in Florida, you can send that to us on the app. Do I care about what's happening in Florida? Maybe, maybe not, but what am I going to do with it? We'll send it to the Fusion Center in Florida, who's going to notify the local law enforcement agency for them to go out and look at it. So the time you hit send, it actually sends it off right then. And so we're getting it within seconds. I've actually used this. I was teaching class here in the beach one day and went home a different way to get out here, and there's a chain of fast casual restaurants here in Hampton Roads I like. Never been to this location before. Walk in the vestibule, and there's a Hells Angels poster on the wall where they're having an event there the day after. So I was there like on a Thursday. It was going to happen on Saturday. I said, well, crap. I don't want to go in here with a bunch of outlaw motorcycle gang guys. I really like the chicken wings here, and I had to go to the bathroom because it's a long trip back to Richmond. So, all right, I'm going to go in, but I'm like on edge the whole time because I don't want anybody to know who I am eating in this place. So as I walk out, I take a picture with the app, and come to find out, our outlaw motorcycle gang agent did not know that that this was happening, because again, it was day after, so Thursday to Saturday, and so I was able to pass some information on. I didn't do anything special. I did what I'd ask you all to do. You see something kind of unusual? Thanks, sir.
I'll let you know what it took. I just went in and put it on my phone. It didn't take very long. This went on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. So I was actually able to pass on some information to our investigators. So that was kind of neat. When I talk about those 7 signs, we can see it here in the Oklahoma City bond. So many people don't realize that the Murrah building in Oklahoma City was not the initial target of McVeigh and Nichols and whomever else you think was involved in this plot. McVeigh actually went to the federal building in Phoenix, Arizona. And as soon as he was walking on the property, something about him made an unarmed security officer go up and say, "Sir, you look like you're lost. Can I help you?" And that was enough. McVeigh said, "No, yeah, I forgot something in the car. I'll be back. Thank you." Went back to his car and left. Unarmed security officer went up, saw something with McVeigh that didn't sit right, engaged him in conversation. McVeigh left, no attack there. That's a win for them. That was not the case here. Because you had surveillance there. You had McVeigh, who had come onto the grounds many times, sitting in a parked car along this front street, watching the comings and goings of security, or lack thereof. That was all part of his surveillance. Elicitation. If you remember, there was a daycare center in that building. I vividly remember this. After this attack, they interviewed some woman, I don't know who she was, saying that, McVeigh had a problem with the government. He didn't want to kill people, but he was trying to make a political statement. If he had known that that daycare center was there, he wouldn't have bombed it. And that is total BS, because he actually went into that daycare center and asked the workers, "Are these kids of the agents that work upstairs?" And the workers responded with yes. So he was able to elicit information, who the people were and who they were related to. Test of security. Well, we've got a lack of security. You've got a non-federal employee, not a dad, and not a dad of any of these kids getting into a daycare center and getting all sorts of information. Acquiring of supplies. What type of device did they use to blow this building up? Ammonium nitrate and fuel oil. So an ANFO bomb. Actually, so what you do is you mix fertilizer and diesel fuel. And actually, instead of diesel fuel, they had more nitromethane, which is racing fuel, and actually made it much more potent. So they had to go out and get all that. They had to get the rider truck. They had to get the self-storage unit where they stored everything until they put the device together. Suspicious people. Okay, again, I talked about McVeigh going into this building, didn't have a real reason to be there. Trial and dry runs, he had actually come up here several times. There used to be a ramp right in here, and he was able to make access in a personal vehicle to get into that ramp area. And then deploying assets. Okay, that's when they actually brought the truck up, left it out front, he walked over to his getaway car. So, if somebody were to pull up a truck bomb, and we know it's a truck bomb, out here in the parking lot right now, as a state trooper, can I arrest that individual?
No, it isn't.
What's that?
If you can arrest him if you know it is.
If I know it's a truck bomb, can I arrest him? Absolutely. I can arrest a lady for an alarm clock in the backseat of her car at a grocery store. I can certainly do that, right? Okay? Can I arrest that same person without the truck bomb, sitting out here taking pictures of us coming and going? No, I can't. Can't make an arrest here. Can here. The closer I get down here, practicing, deploying the bomb, the chance of somebody getting hurt or killed is much more increased. I want to interdict them here. This is where you come in, right? This is when you see something, you say something. You've got somebody who's taking pictures of your church on Sunday morning, and they're not a church member, and you see them there a couple of different times. You get a phone call to the church office, and they call the church secretary, and hey, I want to join your church. Well, that's great. We'd love to have you, but the pastor's not in right now. Well, I want to come now. Is there anybody else there with you? And so, your church secretary has inadvertently said maybe they're by themselves because the pastor's off doing pastoring stuff. Test of security. Maybe they come up and simply walk in. Do you lock the doors during normal daylight hours? During services, do you lock all the non-essential doors? And you should, because that's how people can get into the building. And once they're in the building, it's more likely that they can be successful. We see all these activities, whether it's terrorist or criminal events. So when we talk about suspicious activity reporting, see something, say something is what everybody gets. Okay, you see that in television commercials, all that. We have talked about the 7, and there's also 8 signs of terrorism for fundraising, because you got to have money to make these devices occur. We've gone into some detail about that here. And then in law enforcement, we go even much further, and we look to vet these reports and how they actually work within a national scope. And all this works together. It takes all of us to do this. The citizen sees something, says something to local law enforcement. That suspicious activity is then passed to us at the Fusion Center. We take a look at it. Is it just happening in Virginia Beach, or are we seeing the same activity in Lynchburg as well? We pass that on to the national network of Fusion Centers. There are 80 of us throughout the country. We have 2 in Virginia. The Virginia Fusion Center, we have the responsibility of the entire state. The Northern Virginia Regional Intelligence Center is Fairfax County, Loudoun, Prince William, and the other small cities in Arlington County in Northern Virginia. Everything that they do, we see. Everything that we put out, they get. So we have that common operating picture. So I'm looking at those other centers. So is that happening in Virginia Beach, Lynchburg, oh yeah, and in Idaho? And then we pass that information on to the intelligence community through our partners in DHS and FBI, looking to see if anybody else has anything. This is how the federal government protects us, with the IC, or the intelligence community, if you ever heard that acronym. So what's another way that you can get information? So this is our public outreach program that I mentioned at the very beginning, is VFC Shield. So after 9/11, New York Police Department knew that they need to be able to get suspicious activity reporting in. So they created NYPD Shield. And this is their way of reaching out to cab drivers, or to restaurateurs, or to bellmen, to get, hey, you see something that looks kind of strange, let us know. Incredibly successful program. And they kind of farmed it out to other law enforcement communities. Hey, this is a great model, you should give it a try. And so we had several jurisdictions around the country, and in Virginia, it was actually Hanover County Sheriff's Office, just north of Richmond, that really took the bull by the horns and ran with this. A gentleman by the name of Terry Sullivan. He's a captain with them now. He's a good buddy, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the connection here in a minute. They ran with it. Sheriff Hines there in Hanover. Great success. Terry was cajoling me for years. You all need to do this too. I said, well, we've already got a public outreach thing. We're doing this flow thing, right? We're doing the Fusion Center stuff. Now you got to do this. And so we did. We are the first statewide program in the nation run out of the Virginia Fusion Center. talking about shared community messaging, like what we're doing here. This is all crime prevention stuff. Everything that we talked about today and within our houses of worship can be applied at Walmart, can be applied at schools, can be applied here at the funeral center. And it provides best practices for protection and awareness. It gives you information on what to do. So we've got different bulletins that come out different times, and they're all these different topics. So one of them is Faith Aware. So it's a regularly reoccurring schedule. You can sign up for any or all of these if you want. Community Aware and Fire Aware are the two that we're developing right now. So we want to get that information out too. First Aware is for first responders. About scams. Cyber issues, our faith community, for medical sector, schools, counterterrorism, and critical infrastructure. All these things are there. So to show you,
It's not loading properly on my phone.
okay. So when you go to the website, this is the front landing page. Again, this is our motto, is our awareness through information sharing, and all you have to do is click here. And doesn't cost you anything. Gives you an opportunity to sign in or sign up for what you need. Now, we do ask for some of this information because we're going to communicate by email. All this is completely open source. So you can use your Gmail, your Hotmail, or AOL for some of y'all. All right, you can use any email address. And everything that we put out from this is totally shareable. You can give it to anybody. Anybody. Most things that you get from, whether it's InfraGard, for those that are members of InfraGard, or ASIS International, or some of these other private groups, there's a limited distribution as to what you can do with that, sometimes even from police agencies or other public safety. This, it's all open source. As a matter of fact, if you want to take it for your church, scratch off VFC Shield at the top, put your logo on there, and give it out to your members. We're fine with that. It's a matter of getting the information out. So when you go, it gives you an opportunity to report suspicious activity here. Talks about signs of terrorism, a way to download the app, how to report things, things that are indicators of suspicious activity. This right here, though, I want you to understand that we look at this incredibly closely. It's protecting citizens' civil rights and civil liberties. It's absolutely critical for us. And you hear a lot about this in the media. Some people some reports are maybe not necessarily positive light as far as what law enforcement or other entities collect information. We're not doing that. Okay, that's not what we do. I have to have a criminal predicate or probable cause to be able to do any investigations on anybody. So what you were saying, sir, about that, making that report a good faith report, that's fine. If there's no criminal activity, there's no suspicious activity, then that just goes away. This is incredibly important, and I want you as citizens of the Commonwealth to know that the state police looks at this very, very hard. Our other law enforcement agencies look at this incredibly hard. We don't want to do that. We all took an oath to protect everybody's rights, and we're certainly going to do it here, even though there may be times in the media where it sounds like maybe we don't do that. I assure you we put forth every effort that we can to make sure that it does happen. One other thing I want to show you is just simply some examples of the documents. Talks about what fusion centers are. So what we will do, we'll go to Faith Aware, since that's the bulk of what we're talking about today. So these are the documents that we have put out so far this year. So our latest one. So all this, again, is open source information, but we also source where we got that. So gunshots fired at a Chesterfield church during a funeral. That was actually a big to-do in Richmond. With anti-Semitic attacks on the rise, temples and Jewish organizations use federal money to beef up security. And I got my partners in here we're in the middle of that grant process right now. We understand what that's going on. Tools and resources. So we always give you something in there. So our partners at CISA, we put their links on there. CISA, which is the Critical Infrastructure Security Agency, it's the newest agency within DHS. That'd be pretty good on that, Ron?
You did pretty good.
All right, thank you. Has phenomenal amounts of information on this. All free, download it, incorporate it into your security plan. So we give you that link here. The same with ASIS International, which is private security groups. It's all open source. Gives you a chance to report again. Click online. You can download this as a PDF. And we have a Virginia coalition now. So us, Hanover, Louisa County, Stafford, we're looking to bring on Richmond International Airport, and we've had some outreach from Virginia Beach PD that we're hoping to be able to develop. Doesn't cost them anything. It's not supplanting what they're already doing for outreach. It's simply another mechanism that we can all be successful in getting the word out to our citizens. So I humbly ask that you consider signing up for that. Again, totally free, and we're not going to kill your inbox. So, contact information. So again, there's the SHIELD website address. There's my contact information. I am more than happy to go into any more in-depth with you on this if you have specific questions. Many of you all know Dante Robinson, who's the special agent who has my old job as the outreach coordinator. He can come out and assist you with providing presentations. We can work with you to communicate with either your local police department or sheriff's office or with the state police area office to have a crime prevention specialist come out and do a site assessment. Our folks at CISA, our partners there, can come out and do assessments for certain locations or certain events. We can get you in contact with Rob and his team. That's the whole thing about a fusion center, is we act as that central node. We know everybody. We try to, at least. We have a phone number or an email address, so if I don't have the answer, I know somebody who probably does, and I can reach out to them and get it. So that's it. Email is the best way to get a hold of me, but I'm more than happy to take, anything that I can do for you. Please let me know. So we've got a little bit more time here, just a few minutes, so we can get you all out of here. I'd like to open it up for discussion. So, and this can be a round robin. It could be like best practices. If some of our safety teams have done something good and you want to bring it up, hey, this really worked for us, and you want to spread the word, great. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to put out something I hadn't thought about with my own safety team until this presentation. Talking about 7 signs of activity, where you could possibly get law enforcement involved at the surveillance stage is if your church maintains a ban list. If you have somebody come on the property and then close the parking lot, and they're not welcome there, they're causing problems. If you tell them that they're banned, you can then charge them with trespass, or you can call law enforcement, and law enforcement can either charge them with a summons or take them to jail. With your banned person, getting person subpoenaed for court. So if you had a person come and just taking pictures and not coming to church, and they don't have a good reason, that'd be a good way to get law enforcement intervened at a very early stage.
Absolutely, because then if they're doing it at your facility, are they doing it someplace else too?
Right.
And then that gets, I don't want to say it gets their name into the system, but it gets them aware, hey, we're seeing this individual doing this activity. We need to see if they're doing it someplace else too. It may be totally innocent, and if it is, we stop. Maybe something more we'll deal with. Yes?
I want to reiterate that thing you said about the grants. I cannot stress this enough. If you are not applying for a grant this year, and I'm already starting writing some of them in a couple of weeks, you're crazy. I don't know how, I can't sugarcoat it. That money is available, and if you haven't applied before, you get extra bonus points. It's a competitive grant. You get bonus points against somebody who's already received that grant. There are houses of faith in this community who are now on their 3rd grant of, whether it be 75,000, 100,000, or last year, this last season it was 150,000. You can do a lot with $150,000, including hiring officers randomly, all the surveillance equipment and stuff that goes with the surveillance equipment too. computer, the monitors to see it, all that stuff. I'm telling you, all you gotta do is Google the nonprofit security group or, grant, and all that information will pop up. You guys have got to start applying. One church applied last year, one. Well, I don't know if one applied, but one got it for $29,000. Why they only got $29,000, I don't know. That's all they asked for. I'll tell you this, ask for the full amount, because you either get the grant or you don't. You don't ask for $150,000 and you get $30,000. Get the whole amount. You have 3 years to spend it.
Would you repeat what you Googled?
Nonprofit security grant. And it gets bigger every single year. Every single year. You guys gotta start applying for it.
It's definitely a good resource, especially for those facilities that have limited means. This is a way to, help harden your facility. Absolutely. Anything else? Yes, sir.
On it, see something, say something. You know, the way the police are, they're all so secretive anyways. When you send something in, do you get any kind of reply back that they received it? Cause I've sent something in that I found on Facebook that was, I thought pretty serious.
Right.
But you often wonder in your mind, did you even get it? Did anybody do anything with it?
That is a place that we could definitely improve upon,
Yeah.
is giving that feedback. Because when you send in a report and now you have those questions, am I wasting my time for sending this in? And we are not as good as we should be. We try very hard for our people in our watch center, when we get a report in, that whatever analyst is dealing with that reaches back out. But I know we could still improve too. When you look at a large agency like Virginia Beach PD, they've got so much going on and they're trying to prioritize their time. Sometimes that may be the thing that kind of falls off the list because they're going to another emergency.
Because I know it works because I contacted a man about something else I found on the internet, and he told me, this is not on the internet. The next thing I know, about a month later, I'm getting a call from the FBI out here in Chesapeake, want to know where I got the information. So I know it works.
There you go, absolutely. So it's one of those things, if you have a question, you always follow it up with a phone call too. Anything else?
Is there a particular, this nonprofit security grant, is that a website or is that a
It's or FEMA.
It's the FEMA website.
FEMA website?
Just Google nonprofit security grant, it'll come up, it'll be the first hit. It's a program run by FEMA, managed by the Virginia Department of Emergency Management.
Virginia Department of what?
Emergency Management, VDEM.
So all I did is just like what
Okay.
Dave was just saying, type in nonprofit security grant program, takes you right to the FEMA website. For Virginia, the Virginia Department of Emergency Management is
Okay.
who administers it, but you'll be able to find information on how to apply,
Okay.
all sorts of things.
All right, this
And
is,
I'll give you another website to look up, securecommunitynetwork.org.
thanks.
There is a resource section for NSGP grants. We'll include webinars that we've had in the past that talk about it, how to apply, what they're looking for. It's amazing the amount of information you can pull out of it.
SCN is a huge resource. We have partnered with them through Dave for many years. A lot of resources here. Just phenomenal group
And is
to
this
be
one-
partnership
is
with.
this one a
That's-
grant site also?
This will give you, no, this is talking about their organization, but gives you links on to how to do things, right?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
actually a page in there just on the NSGP program.
Okay. So
That's
there's-
not a grant that you can decide you want to apply for a week before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a
I know,
while.
I
The-
know.
The form itself says at the very top, this form will take you 84 hours to complete.
Okay, okay.
If you're going to apply, there's three things you need. You have to have a risk assessment. That can be done by your local police, state police, other folks, Homeland Security. Rob is glad to come out and do that. You have to have a mission statement on letterhead. And then there's an online form, thank God it's an online form, that used to be a XL 97 document. Till this year, it was an XL 97 document. And that is your application. That packet goes to VDEM, they check to make sure it's got all the necessary parts, and then the only thing that goes to FEMA is that application, electronic application. I'll give you an example just off the top of my head. This year, the Jewish community in Greater Virginia and Hampton Roads received about $1.5 million in grants.
Excellent. That's phenomenal. And that's how we can better protect ourselves.
When you leave here and go down Grayson Road, I work at the building next door,
Yeah.
you're gonna see cameras all the way down Grayson Road, and the fence.
Yeah,
All that was paid for with your guys' tax dollars out of this grant.
yeah, over at the Jewish community center.
So thank you all for spending that money.
And those cameras have put about 25 people in jail so far.
Cool.
So that's a win for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Something else to mention, for safety teams and for churches, a lot of the local agencies have moved to having a community module for training for active shooter, active threat response. I know Portsmouth is doing, we moved to Alert, which got some bump press because of Uvalde, Texas, but Alert training is really good. It does incorporate a community module where we can normally send somebody to like a store or a faith community and kind of teach how you could respond inside that entity and kind of have an idea of what our response is going to be. So it is worthwhile to reach out to the agency that your church is in and see what kind of resources they might have for coming in and teaching what the agency is going to do and how to respond.
There are so
Absolutely.
many resources out there for free training, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, FBI will come out and do training. I've had them or a combination of all in pretty much everything we've done. And it's free. They just want to hear from you that you need it.
And so that's one of those things. So it's not even a matter of knowing all these different websites. You've got 2 points of contact. You got Bob, who is dialed in with everybody. And so you all have already got his email address, and you've got the website for the Institute. And you've got my information now. And I'm more than happy to, either send you documents that I have or send you to a resource where you can find the grant information or a point of contact. You've got your local, whether it's a crime prevention officer, your community policing officer, or maybe even your SRO, your school resource officer is going to have a lot of the same information. So make sure that you do reach out to your local police agencies. It's great, and I truly love that we're able to come in from state police and do this, but it's the local officers that are going to be the ones that come in first because they're there. We may not, the troopers out here on 264 may not even get the word about it. We'll be there to help, but that's what we are. We're a support agency. We truly are. So this is the way that we can do support now. While they're out working calls right now, they can send me, gets me out from behind my desk, which is nice, and come out and we can prepare for this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's the local guys. That's where the rubber meets the road, no doubt about it. Anything else? I'm going to close then. I'm going to close with this. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. You took time out of your day to come listen to me yap and get breakfast. But come listen to me yap in the dark early. But it's very gratifying to me that you would do that. One, personally, and I thank you for this personally. Since I've been doing my faith-based outreach, I have kind of become renewed in what I do in law enforcement. So this truly means a lot to me personally. But I want to thank you for what you're doing for your faith-based community and for your own communities and your families. Because whether you took time off from work, you took time from, the dog is penned up, the dog's got to pee as soon as you get back home, or whatever, you made it a point to be here today to get this information. So you're trying to make a difference in your community. So I'm very thankful for you to do that, because not everybody would. So that whole, we're first responders. That means we're responding after something has happened. Every single one of you is a first preventer. By following the things that we've talked about today, simply discussed, by thinking about that ahead of time, by looking for those types of activities, you can prevent this from happening. And that's what we want. We don't want to have to respond. I'd much rather come out and give all sorts of public education presentations and never have to go to another shooting. I'd be very happy with that. Okay? Unfortunately, we understand how life is. So thank you for what you do. Truly, thank you very much. And with that, everybody have a great day. I think Bob's probably got something he wants to say.
I want to thank Austin for coming. I want to thank Rob, David, Jason. These are some people that can help you, give you some information. We're here to do what we can for you. All you have to do is ask. If we don't have the answer, we'll try to find the person that can. But there's a lot of assets, and you just got to take advantage of it. You got to ask and reach out. Thank you, Austin. Appreciate it.
Let's
Thank-
thank the funeral home
Yeah.
for
Absolutely.
what they did.
Walmart's been a great partner in the community, and we appreciate what they do. They've done a lot for us. Have a great day, stay safe, and stay healthy.
Thank y'all.
Tell Dante, yeah, I'm the one that sends it. Tell Dante I miss seeing him. Jim.